All right, so welcome to our class, Better with Age, Mindful Psychology for Aging Successfully. We're in part 3. So last week we did happiness. The week before we did an overview of aging successfully. And today we're going into the big topic of memory. So this is going to be, wow, this one's going to be an awesome one, I'll tell you. So let me get to my screen share so I can show you my beautiful, beautiful PowerPoint. And here it is. And I go to this one. Slideshow. There you go. There we go. So this is our happiness class. Look at that, because we're still staying happy from last class, but we're going to be working on our memory. And so just for a quick review of our last class and understanding our brain, we all want to remember that we have the lower brain, and the lower brain is always keeping us safe and regulating our heart and our blood pressure. And then we have our middle brain, and that has all our memories, and it has also our habits in there. And so when we're talking about memory, we're talking about what's in that middle brain and getting it up and getting it out and not having it stuck, right? And then we want to talk about our prefrontal cortex, our neocortex, our higher level executive thinking right here. And how do we get new memories is we have to activate our prefrontal cortex, and through having repetitive thinking, then it goes into our middle brain. We also talked about Amy, our amygdala. Got to get that D out there. So that's why we call her Amy. And that Amy is really there as our security guard in our middle and our lower brain, always watching out for problems. Now, someone asked me, well, we talked a little bit about last week about anger. And, you know, do you have anger? And the answer is yes. Anger is a normal feeling that we all have. So there's nothing wrong with being angry, but it's what you do with that feeling. So what happens is, for me, and I just want you guys to know this, is that something will happen, and for lack of a better word, I'm going to have a reaction that's going to make me upset or piss me off. It's an anger response. And that's Amy being activated, saying, watch out, you might be in trouble. You got to really pay attention to this. And so then I get that feeling. But now mindfulness, and this is what we're talking about here in this class, is how does mindfulness play in all this? Being in the present moment without judgment. Being aware, that's the big word. Being aware of one thing. Being aware that I just got pissed off. Being aware that Amy has been triggered. Don't be upset that Amy's been triggered. You have to realize that something bad has happened in your perspective, but then you get to choose what to do with it. So I could have an anger response or an anger reaction when Amy gets activated, but that doesn't mean that I have to run around and be angry all day long, right? I don't have to be an angry person because I had a upsetting response or a pissed off response that Amy was activated. And we all know from neuroplasticity, and we're going to get into this, this is very important when it comes to memory, when we're talking about the brain. Neuroplasticity is the neurons firing together, wiring together, making a connection. If they don't make a connection, you won't have a memory. Got it? You got to have that connection. So there's lots of things that happen. I'm sure I watched, TV last night, and there was a lot of advertisements on it. I had no neuro connection while it was going on. It just kind of filtered in my eyes. I heard it, and I just let it go. I don't really care about Charmin, I don't really care about what is the latest, silky milk for lactose intolerance. I don't know. I don't remember any of those because I didn't have neuroplasticity. I didn't make that connection. So when we're talking about memory, we're saying what connections have we already have that are inside our brain here, and then what connections are we going to make? So it's important for us to realize that. Sometimes my computer likes to let me hit the button, sometimes it doesn't. So just another review that we had about happiness. They really found out that younger people focus on the negative real quick. In other words, their Amy is being developed, okay? And they're not sure what is going to be a problem and what is not going to be a problem, okay? So they really are trying to avoid problems or avoid dangers. They don't want to make mistakes. Younger people don't want to be embarrassed, right? Amy does not want to be embarrassed. It's just humiliating. Now, if you've seen these pictures of me and my family, oh my gosh, we wear the most, I want to say horrendous, but actually I'd rather, instead of horrendous, I'm going to say outrageous shirts. It's because we don't care about being embarrassed. We're not embarrassed anymore. We can hold in our truth. And what happens is older people, they focus on the bigger picture. And that's why they tend to be happier, because little things don't embarrass them. If they end up making a mistake, they're like, who cares about that? So that's a big part of it. They find that reason why older people can be actually a lot happier in life is they take the big picture and they don't take things so personally. They've learned that someone who's in a bad place or upset isn't necessarily a reflection on them being there. Where someone who is like in 6th grade and their friends are acting weird to them, they're sure it's all about them, right? Or if you're in college and, you know, a girl doesn't want to go on a date with you. Of course, I'm now thinking of my sons. They think it's all about them. They have no idea that that girl might be having other issues. It's hard for them to see the bigger picture and see other people's perspective. But when we get older, we've lived so long, we realize, you know what, how people are walking down the street or how people are responding on the phone has really nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with their processing, right? So we don't sweat the small stuff. And this is just huge that we don't sweat the small stuff. So when we go, I'm going to go into here real quick. Stop sharing for a second. So when we are talking about being happy, the older person is able to see the bigger picture. And this is actually what they're finding about true for memory and what's going on. Now, in our book, I just want to start off the way he starts off the chapter on memory. I'll just read the first sentences. Put on my little glasses because my eyes. As we get older, and even after the age of 20, our memory starts to change in many different ways. Some for the good. I'm going to get to some for the good. Stay with me, okay? But there are also clear and concerning declines in various types of memory. These may include the ability to remember names, the combination of a gym locker you haven't used in a while, or why you walked into that room. Now we're going to go there. Don't be scared. We're going to go there. But that's how he starts off. So yes, there is a change to memory. And if I was going to say to you guys, no, there's no change, you would all like just hang up off this class and like bolt out of here. You'd be like, she's crazy. I know there's something's going on. And there is. So there's two kinds of memories. There's, let's see if I can get this. Oh my God. Episodic. I can't even say the word now. EDISODIC. Okay, someone else will be able to say the word for me later. Memory. So that does decline. And that is about the names. That's about the gym lockers. That's specific to like these details. But then there's somatic memory. I got that word because that's the one I like. And that's when you can remember knowledge. When you get older, that kind of memory, your semantic, semantic, semantic memory actually gets better. Now, I want you to know I haven't been able to read or pronounce words since the day I was born, so this has nothing to do with age. So just bear with me. That has a lot to do with my dyslexia. But who cares? I don't get embarrassed anymore. The big picture. It's no judgment on me, right? So anyway, what happens is when you get older, you actually can remember more trivia, right? Capitals, things like that. You get better at spelling words. I know that sounds crazy, but when you get older, they find that people can spell words, they can proofread better. They just have more knowledge. This is one reason why you see so many people that are older enjoying crossword puzzles, because they have the knowledge to do that, where someone younger doesn't have the knowledge within their brain. Now, they also find out, another thing that really happens in memory is that we have some really deep memories in our middle brain that we have repeated over long periods of time, right? And I'll give you an example. My phone number when I was a little kid, 310-429-4812. See, now if you ask me what my husband's, who I have been with for 14 years, cell phone number is, couldn't tell you. Now you'd say, well, it's because you hit the button, and that's true. But I have called him multiple times. But my brain doesn't need to know that anymore, because I know I can hit that button and just do speed dial for him. But my old brain remembers my phone numbers. Isn't that cool? That is just so cool. So what we have to realize is that memory is very complicated, and it is changing. And there are some good aspects, but I'm going to tell you right up front, right now, this is very important for you all to know. In a lot of tests they did, they said there's the stereotype threat. That's what they call it, the stereotype threat. And that is a belief that people feel that when they get older, that they've lost some of their memory, and they generalize it to all their memory, and then they live into forgetting because they think they can forget. Stereotype threat, meaning you think once you're getting older, you should be losing your memory. Therefore, your brain doesn't even try to hold on to the memory. This is very important. What you think about, you bring about. So we have to realize neuroplasticity. Remember what I was saying there. If we practice and use something, it'll make the neurons fit together. But if we don't practice and use it, then it'll separate, and then you become a self-fulfilling prophecy of what you think aging is. So what he called this is the worried well. There's a name for this, the worried well. The people that are in their 60s and 70s, and he calls them the young old. Yay! The young old. The 60s and 70-year-olds, they go into worried well, they forget something, and then they think they generalize. And the truth is their brain is just having a normal function of losing some things, but they overgeneralize and they get anxiety. They get their amygdala, right? They get Amy all upset. Then they don't have good retention because they can't pay attention because they're having anxiety, that they're worried. The worried well. So don't be part of the worried well, okay? They did this test, and this was, I thought, a great test. It was a memory test for these worried well ones, and for part of the group, they called it a memory test, and another part of the group, they called it a wisdom test. A wisdom test. Of course, the people who took the wisdom test did better. Same test, guys, same test. Isn't that just huge? So it was their perception. They thought, well, I don't have good memory, so I won't score well, so I won't do well, and a self-fulfilling prophecy. We've got to get over that self-fulfilling prophecy. This is why we're better with age, so let's really get to know it. So let's go back to my slides. Here we go. Okay. So memory, different age. When you're younger, you remember details. When you're older, you remember the big, for happiness, you get the big picture. Same with memory. Think about it. You understand plots. You understand how to explain summaries. They were going on And they were saying that a lot of younger people, when they asked them to like explain a book or something, they gave too many details. They didn't know how to see the big picture and make it concise, where someone older knows how to do that, okay? And they choose what to remember and dismiss what's not important. So in other words, remember I was telling you what the art of happiness when you're older is the big picture. The younger people don't know what they should focus on and what's going to cause them pain. So what they end up doing is they start really looking at all the details, where someone who's older is not going to waste their energy looking at all the details. They're like, I got it, I got the gist. All right, let's do a little fun game together. Look at these words: slumber, wink, mattress, hammock, insomnia, pillow, exhausted, bed, tired. All right, now if you looked away, and I'm not going to make you, turn off your computer and write them down, but if you like look at the ground and you think, which ones can you remember? Now, if I asked you, you might be able to get a few of them, right? And if I asked you then, keep looking down at the ground, so you're not looking at the words. If I asked you, was pillow one of them? You'd probably say yes. If I asked you, it was picture one of them? You'd probably say no. If I asked you, was closet one of them? You probably would say no. If I asked you if insomnia was one of them, you'd probably say yes. If I asked you, was sleep one of them? You might say yes. But sleep was not one of them if you look back up. So what they found out is that older people will, older people will generalize. And so it's harder for them to remember all the words just in order. But if you ask them, they would generalize, and they all were in sleep, right? So they were all about sleeping, something to do with sleeping. So they could get that. But then what would happen is they'd ask them, was sleep in it, or a blanket, or something like that, that wasn't in the list, but was in the general category. Now this is big. I want you guys to really listen to me. And they found the older they were, the people would say yes, because they remember the category, but not all the specific details. So when a new detail is added correctly into the category, even though it wasn't in the original list, then they thought it was there. Now that's interesting. Now, are you lying to yourself? No, it's just how the brain works when you get older, is you make these huge categories. So we've got to be able to understand ourselves and understand when we age, sometimes we might have, and we're going to get back to why this happens in some other examples, but we might have false memories from a particular time, meaning that we have a general gist of what happened, and if someone adds something that's very similar to it, our brain, because we haven't memorized every single detail, will say, yeah, I think that happened then too. Have you ever been at a table and then someone says, no, Beth, that didn't happen last holiday season. That was 4 holiday seasons when Bertha wrecked the car. And then you sit back and you go, oh yeah. So when you get older, you kind of have to just go with the flow. And now sometimes you might not necessarily remember everything the same or remember it correctly. It's because you're intertwining big categories together, or you're adding things into categories. But that does not mean that you have dementia. It doesn't mean that. So what does it mean? It means that we better be careful and not always saying we're always right. Because Guess we're not. Okay. So what happens is that when you get older, and why I wanted to have that example, is they find that people that are older, they have meta memory, which means we are much more aware of how our memory works. And this is a huge part with aging successfully, mindfully aging successfully, that you want to take an inventory on what are the things that are your weaknesses with your memory and what are the things that are your strengths with your memory. And you want to work with it. Someone who is younger doesn't have meta memory. Part of it is because they just haven't had time to be able to observe themselves. But to be able to observe yourself, remember, is a prefrontal cortex operation right up here. So if you are in a panic mode or in a fear mode or something like that, you are going to be looking at specific problems and details. That's what younger people do. But older people can observe. So then, in other words, they don't get lost. When their Amy gets activated, they can step out of it and they can say, listen, this is just what I need to do to compensate. That is a power of a well-developed brain in the prefrontal cortex. And it is a power we get as we age. That is part of the superpower of aging, that we are able to observe ourselves without being critical, without sweating it, without getting upset, without being embarrassed. And then we can compensate much easier than younger people. Ah, you see, that's kind of cool. So now let's get to names. Well, okay, Lindsay, I wish I could remember names. So do I. And I have to say, my name file cabinet in my brain has been broken since the day I was born. Gosh knows I don't remember anyone's name. And if I'm tired or not paying attention, I will call people the wrong name all the time. My family does this all the time. My father, you should see him. He's like calling me, you know, Sally, and my mom, Wendell, and that's his name. I don't think he does that. But anyway, you get the point. It's kind of a family trait. Oh, I have to just tell you one very funny thing. My youngest son, Nelson, who goes to Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara, graduated high school with 4.4. I mean, really smart kid. And he can't remember names either because it's in the gene pool. And so when I started to date Randy, he was 5 years old. Well, the first 3 years of his life to Randy, he called him No Name. That was his name, No Name. It's the running joke. It's like, what's Randy's name? No Name. He could not remember Randy's name. And, oh, well, doesn't mean anything about IQ. I just want you to know. So anyway, but when you get older, you do lose people's names. Now, in our book, Alan Castell talks a lot about that as we start losing our names, we think it's because of age. But in a lot of times, if you go and ask a real busy parent or someone else, they don't hear people's names either. It goes right in, just like that advertisement. It goes right in and then it goes right out. And one reason why is because we're sizing up the situation all the time. So someone introduces us, but our brain's thinking, are they a friend? You know, how are they dressed? Do they like me? Are they smiling? Are they a threat? Your brain is busy working on all these other categories that seem more important than their name, and then you miss it. So what we want to make sure is that when it comes to names, and you guys have probably, you know, older people, they can do little tricks and so forth. But if I said a list of names, Lincoln, Lucy, Leanne, Lucky, London, Lynn, if I said those names, you probably would remember the person's name if it had meaning. So in other words, if you met someone named London and you looked at him, you're like, yeah, he looks English and his name is London. And it makes something quirky going on and it stops you mindfully in the present moment so you can attach something to their name. Or you're like, Lincoln, he must be an honest guy. Oh my gosh, he's like the president's name. I wonder if he could think of that. If a name triggers something like that and you start an inner dialogue going on, you're going to hold that name. If their name was Rose and your mom's name was Rose, you'll be like, yes, she must be nice. She's like my mom, or maybe not nice. Well, my mom's name's Sally and she's nice. So you would remember it, but other names, they just fly by. So what happens is you have to be able to put importance and meaning. And I've already told you, as you get older, our memory wants to hold on to the bigger picture of somebody, not the smaller picture. So it tends to let go of the name, right? Not necessarily the person, but the name. So we want to be able to remember their name. You have to add some connection to it. Now I have Taming Amy there. And the reason why I have Taming Amy on this slide is because I really want you guys to understand that Amy holds the emotions, especially severe emotions, okay? When you get older, Amy's still there. Amy doesn't disappear. You can tame Amy, but it doesn't disintegrate. It doesn't leave you. In some ways, we always wish it did. But no, you might not use it as much, but we need to tame it. But Amy activates the emotional trigger inside of you. So what we want to realize that is we can use Amy. If you can make Amy, if someone walks up and they have something that's very important and maybe their name is Mark and you're like, oh, wow, Mark, I need to remember Mark's name. He's a very powerful, strong, and you start putting in adjectives that kind of activate your emotions, might activate Amy some, it'll cement better into, remember the middle part of your brain? So we're using the upper part of our brain, attaching meaning and purpose and ideas, and it goes into the middle. But if we're only in the middle part of the brain, like when I'm watching a Charmin toilet paper commercial, I could care less to remember that. No lighting is going on up here. They found out that when words are important to you, they put older people and younger people in a scan. And they found out that when words are important to you, when they have purpose and meaning, the same parts of the brains light up, okay, for older and younger people. So they remember them, the same parts of the brain. But for part that if an older person has been given a list and it doesn't have meaning to them, like they could care less, toilet paper, toothbrush, flour, really it's like, then their brain doesn't light up very much. It dismisses it. Where a younger person is still trying to hold on to all that, right? They haven't learned how to let go. This is why it's so important. Why does that happen? The myth of cognitive decline in older age. Okay, guys, our brain when we get older is like this library. Check out that library. It's huge. Filled and filled. You're like, but when I was younger, I remembered stuff. Yeah, but you didn't have to remember what it was like when you were 30, 40, 50, how to drive a car, how to do your taxes, how to do your career, how to have a conversation with your kids, how to deal with the doctor, your medications, you know, the capital of France. You didn't have to know all that. So you had your think of your brain as a library. You didn't have all these file cabinets. You guys have huge amounts of file cabinets in your brain. And it's just a lot. It's just a lot. So why can someone remember something easier? They say because their library is smaller. It's easier to retrieve. So when it comes to understanding that we have proactive interference when we get older, and a good example they use is when we go to a parking garage. Okay, so you go to a parking garage and you've been there one time. So it's the very first time. Your brain is really looking at where you park and was it near the door and you're near JCPenney and all this kind of stuff. But you go to the mall and you've been there 100 times. So you park, you think you're paying attention, you leave, and then when you come back out, you have a file cabinet of parking there 100 times. And your brain kind of gets confused. Which time are we talking about? Do you see? So a younger brain who's just learning how to drive is going to be really paying attention to everything going on. Someone like myself who has been driving for years, sometimes I'll drive to work. In the old days, I don't even remember driving to work because I was so on automatic pilot. You see, your brain is like this huge filing cabinet. They did this study where they had, this was a UCLA study, and they had fire extinguishers throughout the building. So they went and they grabbed some of the kids that have class, and they said, where are the fire extinguishers in the building? And they had to like mark it on a map. And they could remember where they were. And then they went and they did it for professors that have been working in the building 10, 20 years, you know, older people. They couldn't remember where the fire extinguishers are. Why? Not because they were losing. These are professors at UCLA. They're not losing their memory. It didn't matter anymore. They're like, they dismissed it. It wasn't a new environment. This is so much fun. Okay, those who have grandkids, and now I'm a grandmom, and you take your grandchild to Disneyland or to the park or to the zoo or whatever, even into your own backyard, and you start looking through the world through their perspective, and you notice new things all the time because your brain is trying to say, if this was a brand new library, what's around? And you start seeing the details again. So it's really fun to show people new things because you get to be in the present moment. This is mindfulness without the past stories dismissing everything. All right, now they did another memory test. And in this memory test, they did a proactive memory. So they asked them, okay, in about 10 minutes, you're gonna have to do this list. And they're in a lab. And they gave them a list of all the things they had to do in order. Then they left and everyone did something else. And then they came back to do it. The younger people did better. They remembered what they had to do in the lab, okay? But then they did a study where they gave the younger people and the older people, and they gave them postcards. And they said, go out there and you have to mail these postcards every Tuesday. The younger people completely forgot, and the older people all did it. So it's interesting. In the lab, it was hard for the older people to remember what to do in order. But when it became real life situations, they actually were able to do it. And one reason why is because they set up cues for helping them to remember to do the postcards, where the younger people said, I'm just going to remember. And then they didn't remember. That happens all the time with my kids. I'll ask them to do this, 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 and this. They say they remember, and then they just don't even listen, right? So do they have bad memory? No, they just don't care. Where older people care, and they'll set up, if they make a commitment, right, and it has meaning to them, then they'll make it and they'll work it out. So that is so cool. In the real world, older people tend to actually remember, pay their taxes, whatever it is, in the big picture, when to take their medicine. So let's go back and talk about how do we unlock those cues, okay, those context cues. And the bottom line is we have these file cabinets, and we got to use keys to unlock it. So like if I said to you guys, I have this here. Let me stop sharing here. I'm just gonna put this up right here so I can see you guys for a second. Okay, this right here is a trophy. Second place league, U14 boys division, 2012. It's one of my kids' trophies, second place. Okay, so you think, well, what does that mean? Why did I keep this? Because it is a key for my child when he gets older and he's like 60 years old. When I give him this trophy, if I'm still around, what it does is it unlocks a memory, right? Now, if I said to you all, think of a medal you won in elementary school, or a trophy you won in elementary school, just all take a breath. Think of yourself getting this ribbon or this medal or this trophy. I just unlocked a memory. right? Maybe it was a swimming memory. Maybe it was gymnastics. Maybe it was Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts patches, whatever it is. But if I didn't give you that key of remembering that, you would have not unlocked that file. But that file is there. I really want you guys to understand that file is there. That library is filled and filled and filled of great information. So the interesting thing that we all have to do is unlock it. And you can do it by using all your senses, by seeing stuff, by smelling, music. I know Lori, my piano teacher there, certain music is going to make her think of her beautiful husband, and other music is going to make her think of her wedding. And my dad's and my mom, they used to listen to the Beatles. And so when they hear the Beatles, they're going to have a different memory than me. When I hear the Beatles, I think about running around the living room, jumping up on the couch, up and down. I'm sure that's not the exact same experience that they think of when they think of the Beatles. So you have to realize you have a treasure trove of outrageously awesome memories, but it's so much that we have to use cues and keys to unlock it. And younger people don't have that library. They don't have that memory. But nostalgia is unlocking that and sharing it. And I want you to know, he wrote a whole chapter in his book on how important it is for older people to unlock these memories and to share the connection with their younger people in life, so it gives them a sense of meaning and connection and purpose. It's very cool. Very cool. All right, let's see. It's great to see everyone. Let's see. I'm going to go back to our keys and our file cabinets. And I don't want to stop sharing. I want to. I got it. Oh, walking into the room. Who here has ever said, I got to go get something? It's in the kitchen. Maybe it's your keys, maybe it's a pen, maybe it's a credit card, it's your purse, whatever it is. I got to go get something. And then you walk in the room and you can't remember what you walked into the room for. Well, what you want to do in that situation is walk back into the other room that you were just in, okay? Because you thought of something to do in an environment, and what happens is you changed environments, and so that you lost your trigger of remembering what it was. So if you walk back in to the other room and you look at where the chair you were sitting at and saying, now I was sitting on that chair, and what you're doing is you're unlocking it. So if you want to walk into a room and you have to go get something, let's say you have to get your credit card, you can look at your finger. This is a tip I can give you. It goes, I've got to go in the other room, and you look at your finger and you go, and I've got to get my credit card. And as you think about that, you wiggle your finger, you shake your finger, or you look at your watch or whatever it is. Go in the other room. If you forget what it is, if you wiggle your finger or look at your watch or shake your finger, while you set it in the first room, it'll help you trigger in the second room. They're just tools and techniques. But the problem is that you don't have the cue, the key. So as we get older, we need to have these keys and learn how to set up these keys. Alan Castell wrote a whole thing about how his mother-in-law says she's getting the best the best exercise ever, because what she now, once Alan has told her this, she walks in a room, can't remember what it is, so she has to walk back into the other room to remember what it is, and then walk back in the other room and get it. And she goes, I'm getting great exercise. But she's keeping her memory, and she's walking. So short-term memory, so this is exactly what I was just saying. Just to make sure that you know that you don't know, and use cues and strategies of wisdom. Now, I want to tell you something else that's very interesting about keys. Have you ever told a story to the same person? Or have you ever gone up and told someone a joke only to realize you told them the joke a week ago? So he says this happens a lot. And one reason why is once you tell somebody a joke and they laugh and it's really great, and then you go away and you haven't seen them for a week, and you come back, and then all of a sudden that joke pops up in your head again, so you start telling them the joke again. It's because it was a good experience originally, and they're the key to opening up that joke. The problem is that you're now telling the same person. So we have to be careful sometimes about that. When someone starts telling you the same joke or the same story, it's because when they told it to you originally, it was a good experience and they feel comfortable with you, and they don't realize why it's popped up in their head, but you're a key to that story. And so you trigger it again. So this is just back to the mega awareness of what is happening in our lives. So when we want to be able to continue and really hold our memory, it's important, and they found out that maybe curiosity killed the cat, but curiosity is what's going to save your memory. When you're curious, okay, about something, when you get curious about something, what are you activating? Remember the first ones that we're doing? You're activating your prefrontal cortex, right? You're not, curiosity doesn't say that you're going to pull up old stories. Curiosity is about being mindful, being in the present moment without judging it, without telling stories that you already know, and getting excited, getting that emotion. Remember I told you, when you attach emotion to a thought, it allows you to build the neurons back together. Bubba, got to let me move my hands. If neurons not back together, it gets them to wires, what I really want to say. So you want to get curious. Curiosity is the power to keep that memory going, to activate the prefrontal cortex, not just doing the same things over and over again. So it's very important that you end up learning something new. Now this is huge. 2 huge things to enhance your memory is to learn something new. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to stop sharing here. I'm going to come us back to here so we all can see each other. It's fun to see each other. You all can see, do you see each other or just me? You can see each other? Thumbs up if you, cool, okay. Okay, so back to here. This is just so cool. They took people between the ages of 60 and 90, okay? And they taught them something absolutely new for 15 hours a week over a course of 3 months. After 3 months, the researchers found that adults who were productively engaged in learning new skills showed improvement in memory compared to those engaged in social activities or non-demanding mental activities. Thus, the key seems to be trying something new that is challenging. Guys, this is it. There can be a benefit over simply doing things in your brain that is familiar, such that a new challenge can lead to far-reaching cognitive benefits. Now, it goes in a lot more to explain this, but this is huge. What are you doing when you're learning something totally new? Prefrontal cortex. When we're doing prefrontal cortex, then we're developing it, it's growing. When it's growing, then it holds better memory. So he's not saying that you just get better at that activity, that you actually improve your memory overall when you learn something new. That is just so magnificently wonderful. So in other words, if you're a really good person who knows how to knit or how to do crossword puzzles, he gets into a big thing about are crossword puzzles good for you? And he's like, that's not new. That's not new. A crossword puzzle is not new. Crossword puzzle is recalling. It's not bad for you, don't get me wrong, okay? But it's recalling vocabulary you already know. What he's talking about is learning something totally new, like a language, learning a brand new language. Or I'll go back to Lori being a pianist. Her practicing piano on old songs is not new. It's good for you, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of good things. But if she was writing her own music, or learning a totally new piece that she didn't know, that was complicated and challenging, that's activating this really like thought problem solving, issues up here. That will increase your cognitive ability in all areas of your life. That is so cool, right? So they went and they found some people that were super agers. And super agers were people that were in their 70s and had memories of people who were in like they were in their 40s. And they wanted to find out what did they have in common. And they tried to, like, you know, figure it all out. And what they found out that they had in common is that they had jobs that were extremely challenging to them, even frustrating, but made them work in their prefrontal cortex. That's what they had, this part of their brain. So they didn't do something, a repetitive job over and over again. They were really engaged in problem solving, even exhausting to them. But what it did was build up that prefrontal cortex. That is cool. So what can we do? Learn something new. What are you guys doing right now? Learning something new. Hopefully you're learning something new. You're totally engaged. You're thinking about it. You're having an emotion to it. You're thinking, how can I apply this in my own life? It's something new. Engage in coursework you don't already know, okay? Now, the second thing that he goes on and talks about that improving memory that is so important is exercise. And so he has a big section in it on that when you are exercising, and and it can be walking. It does not have to be this hardcore sweating exercise. It has to be something that gets your pulse rate up and actually is getting your blood to go through and circulate through your whole brain. So they did a whole study on people who walked for 40 minutes and got their heart rate up compared to someone who stretched for 40 minutes. They found out the people that walked had better memory through tests over a longer period of time than people who just did 40 minutes of stretching. So yoga, so good for you. I'm not saying it's not good for you. Awesome, you know, but you still want to go out there and walk and move your body around. You literally, your blood is like filtering through your body and getting it and cleaning out that brain, getting those cobwebs out, right? So my friend, who I keep talking about, Lori, and the reason why, Laurie, I would say Lori, I keep saying that is because she emailed me today. So she's in the top of my memory bank. And she said, this might be good for your course. And so my book says this, but here she got from a health site. Exercise is the mother lode for all fortifying your body and your brain. Just one workout boosts your brain power to improving focus, attention, mood, and reaction time. If you regularly do aerobic exercises that causes you to work up a sweat over a period of weeks, months, and years, you'll gradually increase, listen to this, the brain boosting effects. Thanks to exercise includes neurochemicals such as factors that promote the survival of growth of neurons. Remember, we're talking about having the neurons being healthy to wire together, the fire together. You can't have a memory if they're not wiring together, firing together. And so these people are saying because the brain is having this cleansing and this oxygenating, that it wires together, fires together. These changes lead to new brain cells in the hippocampus, where new long-term memories are formed, and new synapses in the prefrontal cortex, critical for planning, problem solving, and decision making. Is that what we say all the time? Hey, they're writing my class. Thank you for validating me, health site. Strengthening these areas can help ward off cognitive decline. Amen, sister. Amen. This is so huge. In the case where they talk about, in here, they talk about the hippocampus as well. And in the hippocampus, they said that usually with age that declines. However, when people are exercising, they found that it is not declining, that it actually, because of blood flow, I was going to see if we could do this. Given that the hippocampus volumes decline by 1% every year after the age of 50, okay? So that's one reason why we're having a problem, because hippocampus is long-term memory, right? An increase of 2% is a big deal. So they found that people that exercise were increasing their hippocampus by 2% instead of being the average person who's losing it by 1%. Let's go hippo. Let's go hippo, right? Let's increase our hippo. I love it. Lisa has a little dog waving to the hippo. So what did we learn here? In the memory about aging, for what we have going on, these are huge things, is one is that we get to see the big picture, which is huge. We see the big picture. We know where we're weak and we know where we're strong. And we don't activate our defensive mechanism by getting embarrassed and being in fear and just trying to look at the little details. We can enjoy life with the big picture, and we can use different tools and techniques to remember our weaknesses. And where we have weaknesses, we can remember. We need to use keys to unlock that library. So when someone says you don't remember something, you don't say, oh, I'm losing my brain. You go, my library is too full. Let's do the positive. Let's say, listen, I've lived for 70 years. I got a lot of stuff in my brain right now. I need to have a few seconds to open the right cabinet to give you the right answer. Not because you can't remember, not because you're dumb and stupid. It's because your cabinet's full of knowledge and wisdom. And let's say it that way. We are not going to be the worried well, right? That's what they call people. They're in their 60s and 70s, whatever, and they're worried all the time because they can't get that file count. We're not the worried well. We're the librarian. We're the librarian. Give me a second. I got to find it. Hold on. You're only, you're only 21 years old. You don't have a lot of information in there. I got 53 years. I got a good answer, but you got to give me 2 minutes to find it. Your library room is little. Mine is huge. So we are not going to be the worried well. We're going to use these tools. We're going to embrace that when we get older, we can see the bigger picture. We have so much wisdom. We don't get lost in the stupid details. We don't get lost in sweating over the small stuff. We're not in the fear mode. And we will continue learning. When you're young, you have to learn because you don't know. When you're older, you get to choose to learn because we do know. We know how to just live our life in our house and maybe the job we have. We want to be able to continue growing our hippocampus. So we're going to exercise and we're going to continue learning. And we're going to not sweat the small stuff, not take life personally, and know with age, you can actually be happier. So I got a hands up for that. Okay, so next week, and I'm going to end up, you guys can start unmuting yourself if you want, but next week, we're going to be better with age, the mindful psychology and wisdom. It's our topic. And know that this class that I'm doing right now is being recorded. So if you want anyone to see it, it'll be on my YouTube channel coming up. I want to thank everybody for being here. And it's so much fun to do this. Namaste to all of you, my wonderful Sangha group, and better with age. Oh, hey, look at this, the long room. That's the exact same picture.
Yes.
Where'd you get that, Laurie?
I went there last summer. I went to Ireland with my choir.
I did not even know that. I just picked that out of something off of, Google, and you have it.
This is at Trinity College. It was just amazing. I was so impressed with that huge room.
Now, is that synchronicity? Laurie is the one who gave me the quote, and then I picked that library, and then she had that library.
It's a coaster. That's why I have it right here. I didn't know you were going to show that picture. But
I just picked it because I thought it was a cool picture when I Googled libraries to put it into my PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Life is wonderful. Either everything is a miracle or nothing. I choose everything is a miracle. Us being together is a miracle. So, but I want to thank you. Thank you, Dad. Nice seeing you. And Lisa and Robbie, Trudy.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Enjoyed it.
It's
Very
Karen.
helpful.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Sarah. Hi, Karen. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Hi,
Bye.
Judy.
If I can remember what I have to do next.
Write a list and give yourself
I
credit.
have
You just have a lot on your brain.
Go in and out of your room.
Go back
Mine's
to the room.
upstairs, downstairs.
Thanks a bunch.
Good exercise.
It is.
you.
Take care.
you.